Sarah's phone buzzed at 2:47 a.m. Another Tinder match. His profile said Marcus, 28, investment banker. Perfect jawline, mysterious dark eyes, and somehow he was awake texting her at this ungodly hour. Can't sleep either? His message read. She should have been suspicious when he suggested meeting at midnight. She should have questioned why he never wanted to video call. She should have noticed how every photo was taken in perfect shadow. But Sarah was lonely, and Marcus was intoxicating. 3 dates later, she could barely get out of bed. Her friends said she looked pale, exhausted, like something was literally sucking the life out of her. They had no idea how right they were, because Marcus wasn't just another bad Tinder date. He was something much, much worse. Don't forget to subscribe and drop a comment with your favorite horror topic. I read every single one and use your ideas for future videos. Sarah had been single for 8 months when Marcus appeared on her screen like some kind of digital miracle. After countless swipes through gym bros flexing in bathroom mirrors and finance guys posing with dead fish, here was someone who actually looked sophisticated. His bio was simple but intriguing. Night owl, art collector, always up for deep conversations. No shirtless selfies, no group photos where you couldn't tell which guy he was. Just 3 carefully curated images that screamed mystery and class. The first photo showed him in a perfectly tailored black suit, standing in what looked like an art gallery. The lighting was dramatic, casting shadows across his sharp cheekbones and accentuating those impossibly dark eyes. The second was more casual, him reading at what appeared to be a 24-hour cafe, a slight smile playing on his lips as if he'd just read something amusing. The third photo was the one that made her heart skip. He was looking directly at the camera, with an intensity that seemed to reach through the screen and grab her by the throat. Sarah's thumb hovered over the screen for a moment before she swiped right. The match notification popped up instantly, accompanied by a message that arrived so quickly it was almost like he'd been waiting for her specifically. I had a feeling we'd connect, it read. Your eyes tell stories. I'd love to hear them. Most guys opened with hey or some terrible pickup line about her name. This felt different, sophisticated, like he actually saw her as more than just another profile to collect. She found herself typing back immediately, something she never did. What kind of stories do you think they tell? The response came back within seconds, as if he'd been staring at his phone, waiting. The kind that are best shared in person, over wine, under starlight. Sarah felt her cheeks flush. When was the last time a man had talked to her like this? Like she was poetry instead of just another Friday night option. Their texting became addictive. Marcus had this way of making every conversation feel like the most important thing in the world. He never sent one-word responses or left her on read for hours like other guys. His messages were thoughtful, poetic even. He asked about her dreams, her fears, her thoughts on everything from classical music to the meaning of existence. When she mentioned loving old movies, he didn't just say cool. He wrote entire paragraphs about film noir and the beauty of black and white cinematography. There's something magical about shadows and light playing together, he texted one evening. The way darkness can make the bright spots even more beautiful. Don't you think we're all just looking for someone who can appreciate our shadows as much as our light? Sarah read that message 3 times, her heart doing complicated things in her chest. This was the kind of conversation she'd been craving her entire adult life. But there were odd things too. Things that should have made her pause but instead only added to his mysterious appeal. He only texted late at night, usually after midnight. When she suggested meeting for brunch or an afternoon coffee, he always deflected, suggesting dinner instead, but never anywhere too bright. I prefer intimate settings, he explained. Candlelight brings out the truth in people. He claimed to be an investment banker but somehow had unlimited time to craft these elaborate messages at all hours. And when she tried to video call, he always had an excuse. Bad lighting, poor connection, or he was more of a face-to-face person. The strangest thing was how he seemed to know exactly what to say to make her feel special. Like he could read her insecurities through the screen and address each one with surgical precision. When she mentioned feeling invisible at work, he wrote back about how remarkable women are often overlooked because their brilliance intimidates people. When she complained about feeling drained lately, he suggested she just needed someone who could appreciate her energy properly. Every response felt perfectly tailored, almost too perfect. But Sarah was so starved for this kind of attention that she ignored the little voice in her head asking how he could possibly know her this well after just a week of texting. By their second week of messaging, Sarah found herself declining invitations from friends just to stay home and text with Marcus. Her co-workers noticed she was constantly checking her phone, smiling at the screen in ways that made them nudge each other and whisper about her mysterious new guy. She'd never felt this connected to someone she'd never actually met, and that should have terrified her. Instead, it thrilled her. Marcus had a way of making the ordinary feel extraordinary. When she mentioned grabbing coffee on her lunch break, he responded with a detailed description of his favorite cafe in Prague, the way the morning light filtered through ancient windows, how the barista knew everyone's order by heart. When she complained about her cramped apartment, he painted word pictures of moonlit terraces and rooms filled with books and candlelight. He lived in a world that seemed infinitely more romantic and mysterious than her mundane reality of Netflix and takeout. "I feel like I've been waiting my whole life to meet someone like you," she texted him one Thursday night, immediately regretting how desperate it sounded. But Marcus's response made her forget her embarrassment entirely. "Some connections transcend time and space, Sarah. I feel like I've known you for centuries, like we've found each other again after being apart for far too long." The way he wrote her name, even in text, felt like a caress. When he finally suggested meeting in person, Sarah's heart nearly exploded with excitement and nerves. "Saturday night," he wrote. "There's this little wine bar I know. Very intimate, very private. The kind of place where we can talk for hours without the world interrupting us." He sent her the address, a place she'd never heard of in a part of town she rarely visited. "Meet me at midnight," the message continued. "I know it's late, but trust me. The night is when magic happens." Sarah stared at that message for a long time. Midnight seemed unusual for a first date, but everything about Marcus was unusual. And maybe that's exactly what she needed. The wine bar existed in a basement that felt older than the building above it. Stone walls sweated with moisture, and candles flickered in alcoves that seemed carved rather than built. Sarah almost turned around 3 times walking down those narrow stairs, but Marcus was waiting at a corner table looking even more devastating in person than in his photos. The candlelight caught the sharp angles of his face perfectly, and when he smiled, she forgot every red flag that had been whispering in the back of her mind. "You're even more beautiful than I imagined," he said, standing to kiss her cheek. His skin was cold, but his voice was warm honey that made her knees weak. The wine he'd already ordered was deep red, almost black in the dim light, and it tasted like nothing she'd ever experienced, rich and complex with an aftertaste that seemed to linger on her tongue long after each sip. Marcus was everything she'd hoped, and more. He listened with an intensity that made her feel like the only person in the world. His stories about traveling through Europe, his art collection, his philosophical views on love and connection. Everything painted him as someone who lived life on a completely different level than everyone else she knew. When he reached across the table to touch her hand, his fingers were ice cold, but the electricity that shot through her was anything but. "You have no idea how long I've been searching for someone like you," he murmured, his dark eyes never leaving her face. "Someone with such vitality, such beautiful energy." The way he said energy sent shivers down her spine, though she couldn't quite say why. Most people these days are so drained, so empty. But you're absolutely radiant with life. By the time they left the wine bar at 3 a.m., Sarah felt drunk on more than just alcohol. She felt intoxicated by Marcus himself, by the way he looked at her like she was some precious treasure he'd been searching for his entire existence. When he walked her to her car and kissed her goodnight, his lips were cold, but his kiss was fire. Their second date was at his apartment, and Sarah should have noticed that all the windows were covered with heavy blackout curtains. She should have questioned why every mirror in the place was turned toward the wall or covered with cloth. She should have found it strange that he seemed to have no food in his pristine kitchen, just bottle after bottle of that same dark red wine from the bar. But Marcus had this way of making everything seem romantic rather than suspicious. "I'm very particular about my environment," he explained when she commented on the darkness. "I find artificial light so harsh, so unforgiving. Candlelight is so much more flattering, don't you think?" And he was right. The dozens of candles throughout his apartment created an atmosphere that was undeniably magical. The place felt like something out of a gothic romance novel, all dark wood and rich fabrics and shadows that danced on the walls. Marcus cooked for her, though she never saw him eat anything himself. "I prefer to watch you enjoy it," he said when she asked. "There's something intoxicating about watching someone savor something beautiful." The way he watched her eat, the way his eyes followed every movement of her lips and throat, should have made her uncomfortable. Instead, it made her feel desired in ways she'd never experienced. But by the end of that second evening, Sarah felt strangely exhausted, not just tired from staying up late, but drained in some deeper way she couldn't quite identify. Her limbs felt heavy, her thoughts fuzzy like she was coming down with something. When Marcus walked her to the door, he held her face in his cold hands and studied her with an expression that seemed almost hungry. "You look a little pale, darling," he murmured, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. "Maybe you should get more rest. Take better care of yourself. I'd hate for anything to diminish that beautiful glow of yours." His concern seemed genuine, but there was something else in his eyes, something that made her think of a collector admiring a particularly valuable piece. Something that should have sent her running, but instead only made her want to please him more. By their third date, Sarah could barely make it through a full day at work without needing a nap. Her friends started commenting on how pale she looked, how tired she seemed, how she'd lost weight. "Are you eating enough?" her best friend Jessica asked with genuine concern. "You look like you're wasting away." But every time Sarah looked in the mirror, all she could see was what Marcus saw. Someone becoming more refined, more elegant, more perfectly suited to his sophisticated world. Marcus seemed to grow more vibrant with each date while Sarah grew weaker, though the connection felt too intense to question. He would trace her collarbone with those cold fingers and tell her how beautiful she looked in the candlelight, how her skin was becoming more luminous, more translucent. "You're transforming," he would whisper against her neck, "becoming something more than ordinary. More than human." It was during their fourth date that Sarah finally understood what was happening. She'd excused herself to use his bathroom and caught a glimpse of herself in a mirror he'd forgotten to cover. The reflection that stared back made her gasp. Hollow cheeks, dark circles under her eyes, skin so pale it looked almost gray. But more shocking was what she saw behind her in the reflection. Marcus stood in the doorway, but in the mirror there was nothing. Just empty space where he should have been. Her blood turned to ice as pieces clicked into place. The late-night meetings, the cold skin, the way he never ate, never appeared in reflections, never wanted to meet anywhere bright. The strange exhaustion that grew worse after every encounter, the dating app that had seemed to know exactly what she was looking for, serving up the perfect predator at her most vulnerable moment. Sarah turned slowly from the mirror to find Marcus watching her with eyes that were no longer mysterious, but predatory. His perfect smile revealed teeth that were definitely not human, and the hunger in his gaze was no longer romantic. It was literally that, hunger. For her blood, for her life, for everything she had left to give. He said softly. "I was wondering when you'd figure it out." Sarah's story ended with her barely escaping Marcus's apartment, but not before discovering his phone filled with dozens of other matches, other women in various stages of being drained. Screenshots of conversations that followed the exact same pattern. The late-night messages, the romantic poetry, the careful grooming of lonely hearts. Some profiles showed women who looked eerily familiar from missing person reports on the news. What makes this tale truly terrifying isn't just the supernatural element, but how perfectly it mirrors real dating app dangers. The love bombing, the isolation tactics, the way predators study our profiles to become exactly what we're looking for. Marcus didn't just want Sarah's blood. He wanted her complete trust, her isolation from friends, her willingness to ignore every red flag because she was so desperate for connection. The scariest part? In our world of endless swiping and digital connections, we've made it easier than ever for predators to find victims. We post our vulnerabilities, our desires, our loneliness right there in our profiles. We meet strangers in dark places because we're so hungry for romance that we ignore our instincts. Sarah survived because she finally trusted what her reflection was telling her, that something was literally draining the life out of her. But how many of us ignore those same warning signs in our real dating lives? How many times do we dismiss that feeling that something's not quite right because we want the fairy tale so badly? The next time you match with someone who seems too good to be true, who only wants to meet in dark places, who makes you feel amazing while somehow leaving you drained, maybe listen to that little voice in your head. Because whether they're vampires or just regular predators, the result can be the same. They'll take everything you have to give and leave you empty. Trust your instincts. They might just save your life. What did you think of Sarah's terrifying dating experience? Have you ever encountered someone on a dating app who gave you serious creepy vibes? Share your stories in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more spine-chilling tales that blur the line between supernatural horror and everyday dangers. Hit that notification bell so you never miss when we explore the dark side of modern life. What horror topic should I cover next? Drop your suggestions in the comments and I'll turn your nightmares into next week's story.